Every summoning mechanic has some sort of intricacy or alternative method. You have traditional fusion with a spell, but some archetypes can also contact fuse. You can use Xyz monsters as material for an Xyz summon or use a rank up spell. And it's more of an archetype to archetype thing, but Tri-Brigade can effectively link someone using monsters from the graveyard. Unchained and a few other link monsters can use opponent's monsters as link material. And of course, Salamangreat has the reincarnation link summon. But I think Synchros take the cake with the amount of variations to the Synchro summon. A tuner plus a non-tuner, 2 tuners and a non-tuner, a tuner synchro plus non-tuner synchros, substituting an attribute for a tuner, tuners plus tuners, and most recently dark tuners. The dark tuner concept is pretty old, stemming from the 5Ds era, but it wasn't actually adapted until the Limit Over collection, but Konami kind of already used this idea with the Ursarctic archetype. You have these high-level non-tuners and even higher-level tuners to make level 1 synchros, and then use the level 1 synchro to summon other synchros whose levels equal the gap in the levels between the two monsters. I probably explained that in the worst way possible, but here's a better explanation from the 5Ds anime.
ブリザードリザードのレベルは3からダークチューナーのレベルを引いた数と同じレベルのシンクロモンスターを召喚できる。まさかそんなことがレベル3からレベル8をマイナスしたらあるのだよ。我ら闇の世界にはレベルマイナス5のモンスターがね。バカな。
This was a really cool way to innovate the synchro mechanic, but it never really took off, and in today's video we're going to explore why the weirdest synchro deck failed. But before we get into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get started. The Ursarctic archetype debuted in the TCG in 2021's Ancient Guardians. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like Konami puts more effort into the playstyles of deck build pack archetypes. Some of them are pretty bland, like Raziel, but generally we get a lot of interesting stuff. I love the playstyle of decks like Vanquish Soul, Valence, and Labyrinth, and I feel like Ursarctic fits into the second category. But all of the main deck monsters, excluding one, have the following effect. During your main phase, quick effect. You contribute one level 7 or higher monster from your hand, special summon this card from your hand. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn, except monsters with a level. The restriction is interesting as it means no links in Xyz, so if you're playing this deck, you have to go all out with the Synchro strategy. They also all have effects on summon, but they differ between the level 7 and level 8 monsters. The level 7s get an effect on summon, and the level 8s only get the effect if you already control another Ursarctic monster. But let's get into the monsters starting with the level 7s. McPolar on summon can add one Ursarctic monster from your deck to your hand, just immediately making it one of the better main deck monsters. McBillis lets you special summon an Ursarctic monster from your hand, which is exceptional, and McTanis can target an Ursarctic monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand, allowing you to recycle some of the resources you lose when summoning the Ursarctic monsters. The level 8s all have more aggressive effects, which works nicely as you can summon these monsters on your opponent's turn. Megabillis can banish a card from your opponent's grave, Megatanus can Book of Moon an opponent's monster, and Megapolar can pop a spell or trap. So nothing crazy, but it's cool that these are all effectively hand traps. And as I mentioned in the intro of the video, you'll use the level 8 tuner and level 7 non-tuner to special summon the level 1 Ursarctic Polari, which is one of the only 2 level 1 synchro monsters, and the other we'll discuss later. Cannot be synchro summoned, must be special summoned from your extra deck by sending 2 monsters you control with a level difference of 1 to your graveyard. If this card is special summoned, you can activate one Ursarctic Big Dipper directly from your deck. You contribute one level 7 or higher monster to add to your hand, or special summon one Ursarctic monster from your graveyard. Because of the gimmick of the deck, this card is crucial, and we're kind of going out of order, but we have to discuss the field spell to make more sense of Polari and the rest of the archetype. Once per turn, if your Ursarctic monster would tribute a monster to activate its effect, you can banish one level 7 or higher Ursarctic monster from your graveyard instead. Each time a monster is special summoned, place one counter on this card. Once per turn, if a monster is special summoned and an Ursarctic Synchro monster is on the field, you can remove all counters from this card, minimum 7, then target one monster your opponent controls. Take control of it. Tributing a monster to activate every effect becomes very costly, but the field spell lets you banish them from your grave, which lightens the load. And the counter effect isn't too hard to trigger, but I don't think it's something you'll be using very often. But now that we've discussed the level 1 Synchro, we can move on to the boss monsters, of which there are 2. Ursarctic Septentrion and Grand Chariot. Cannot be synchro summoned, must be special summoned from your extra deck by sending 2 monsters you control with a level difference of 7 to the graveyard, 1 level 8 or higher tuner, and 1 non-tuner synchro monster. Negate the effects of face-up monsters without a level level that were special summoned from the extra deck. If your opponent special summons a monster, you can add one Ursarctic card from your deck to your hand. This is a very interesting floodgate as it only applies to Links and Xyz, which isn't niche but won't always be effective, and it applies to you as well, but that doesn't really matter as the main deck monsters lock you into summoning monsters with a level. And the second effect is really nice as it's easy to trigger and allows you to search the level 8s on your opponent's turn, providing you with more disruption. And the second Synchro Grand Chariot is a much more traditional boss monster. Cannot be synchro summoned, must be special summoned from your extra deck by sending 2 monsters you control with a level difference of 7 to the graveyard, 1 level 8 or higher tuner, and 1 non-tuner synchro monster. If this card is special summoned, you can target up to 2 cards on the field, destroy them. Once per turn, when a card or effect is activated that targets an Ursarctic card you control, quick effect. You contribute 1 monster from your hand or field, negate the activation. A double pop on summon is strong, and technically has an Omni negate, although it has to be in response to your cards being targeted. It's also interesting to note that this card doesn't have a hard once per turn, although summoning 2 of these in a turn would be pretty difficult. An interesting pair, but mostly positive. Moving on to the spells, we'll start with Ursarctic Departure, which is the search spell and lets you search 2 Ursarctic monsters by discarding a card, and it can banish itself from the grave to serve as a tribute for the effect of an Ursarctic monster. But the second effect cannot be used the turn it was sent to the graveyard, which is a little unfortunate. I do feel like by 2021, we'd already passed this balancing design, but regardless, this is a great card as it sets you up with a monster to summon and a monster to tribute. The next spell is the quick play spell Ursarctic Slider. Target one of your Ursarctic monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. Special summon it, but it cannot attack. Also, destroy it during the end phase. For the rest of the turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon except monsters with a level. Slider is basically Monster Reborn, which is helpful because you can bring back the monsters you tributed, but it's also pretty cool using it on your opponent's turn to bring back your level 8s and use their disruptive effects. And the final card from Ancient Guardians was the Continuous Trap Quint Charge. Once per turn, you can pay 700 life points, then activate one of the following effects. Add 1 Ursarctic monster from your graveyard to your hand, tribute 2 Ursarctic monsters even if face down, and if you do, special summon from your extra deck 1 Ursarctic monster with a level equal to the difference in levels of those monsters, ignoring its summoning conditions. When your Ursarctic Synchro monster is destroyed by your opponent's attack, you can activate this effect. Your opponent must shuffle cards into the deck so that the total number of cards in their hand, field, and graveyard is 7. I think this card is really good. It recycles and lets you synchro on your opponent's turn, which makes Grand Chariot's pop effect more threatening, and allows you to use Septentrion's Floodgate effect in the middle of your opponent's turn. And I haven't spoken much about the 7 motif that's present in these cards, but the last effect is pretty cool, although very situational, as the monsters must be destroyed by battle. I think Ancient Guardians gave this deck a decent base, but as you've probably noticed, there is one major problem: the tributes. They do really start to add up, and as I mentioned, there are workarounds, but your card count can get pretty low, and I think the future waves try to improve upon that. Burst of Destiny took this archetype in a very interesting direction, tying it to the Drytron archetype with the cleverly named Ursarctic Drytron and Ultimate Flagship Ursatron. Special summon 1 Ultimate Flagship Ursatron from your extra deck by banishing 1 Ursarctic Big Dipper and 1 Drytron Fafnir from your hand or field, although you can banish one of them from your deck instead if Ursarctic Polari or Drytron Alpha Thuban is on the field. If you attribute a monster to activate an Ursarctic or Drytron monster's effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. So you can fuse the 2 field spells into Ursatron, which is actually a decent card, allowing you to search and recycle both archetypes. These cards are cool, but not my favorite. You have to throw a brick into your deck, and it feels a little gimmicky, although it's fairly easy to resolve. Battle of Chaos in 2022 brought a little more card advantage with Radiation, which places 7 counters on itself, and when you summon an Ursarctic monster from your hand or extra deck, you get to draw a card. And the effect is not once per turn, so hypothetically you could draw 7 cards, although summoning 7 of these guys is very ambitious, but it does help fix the resource issue. But the next 2 cards were really game-changing. Duelist Nexus delivered the most recent wave of support, and these cards are doing some heavy lifting. Ultimate Bright Knight Ursatron Alpha is another Ursarctic Drytron hybrid, but much better than the previous. Cannot be normal summon / set, must be special summoned by a card effect. If you control an Ursarctic or Drytron monster except Ultimate Bright Knight Ursatron Alpha, you can special summon this card from your hand, then you can add 1 Ursarctic or Drytron spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Bright Knight is a great extender, and I think most importantly, it's a pure +1. You summon it and it searches with no tribute. And the other addition was the new level 1 Synchro monster, Polar Star. Cannot be synchro summoned. Must be special summoned from your extra deck by sending 2 monsters you control with a level difference of 1 to the graveyard. You can tribute 1 level 8 Ursarctic monster from your hand or field and this card. Special summon 1 Ursarctic Synchro monster from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, and if you do, it gains this effect. Your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with a level that that were special summoned from the extra deck. If you use this card to summon Septentrion, it can become a crazy floodgate, as you can negate the effects of monsters without a level and prevent the activation of effects of extra deck monsters with a level, really limiting your opponent's options. And Polar Star being able to tribute a monster from the hand or field gives you a few more options. The stuff from Duelist Nexus relative to the rest of the support is insane, but in the larger context of the game, not enough for Ursarctic to even be a rogue contender. This is far from the worst deck we've covered on the channel, but there are a few problems. And the first is one we touched on earlier, the tributes, which is kind of funny because Drytron, which Ursarctic is linked to, has a similar design where you have to tribute monsters to summon the others, but Drytron just does it better because the Drytron monsters can summon themselves from the graveyard. Big Dipper, Radiation, and a few other cards mitigate the loss of card advantage by allowing you to banish cards from the graveyard as cost for your effects, or in the case of Radiation, draw, but you still have to get to these cards. This is part of why Bright Knight is such a big deal, because it gets you access to those cards faster, but the other ways are Polari and Septentrion, and by the time you make those, you're already down a few cards. And your best and archetype starters discard and tribute for cost, meaning if they get negated, you're already down a card, and in the case of Departure, 2 cards. If they could summon themselves from the grave or tribute each other from the field like Drytron monsters, it would make them a lot better. Or even if Big Dipper let you banish twice per turn instead of just once. But there are some decent normal summon engines like Righty and Lefty Driver and Deep Sea Diva that are 1-card starters to make Polari. And the other big point is that this deck almost suffers from being an innovator. Its uniqueness means that a lot of pre-existing Synchro support just doesn't help the deck that much. As I mentioned, Righty and Lefty Driver and Deep Sea Diva can summon Polari, but generally it doesn't have a ton of synergy with existing Synchro strategies. And interestingly, when doing research for this video, I saw a lot of videos about Ursarctic Mitsurugi, which actually makes a lot of sense. The Mitsurugi rituals will search when they're tributed, and have powerful normal summons in Aramasa and Saji. But credit to the designers. The idea was already out there with Dark Tuners, but it's still pretty cool to see it translated into the TCG, and I don't really know if they'll ever revisit this concept beyond reprinting the remaining Dark Tuners, but I'd like to see if Konami has any more ways of repackaging the Synchro mechanic. But that's the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, and consider subscribing to the channel. What is your favorite spin on an existing mechanic? Leave it in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.